The initial vision for this commando group, under the Project Plough designation, included a composite force of American, British, Canadian, and Norwegian troops. However, wartime constraints led both the British and Norwegian contingents to withdraw, leaving the North American partners to form the core of the Special Force. The initial request from the U.S. Deputy Chief of Staff of the Army called for 500 Canadian troops, including an officer to serve as second-in-command and commanding officer of the Canadian contingent, and 500 American troops. Eisenhower tasked Lieutenant Colonel Robert T. Frederick with organizing and commanding this new combat unit on June 16, 1942. On June 26, Canadian Prime Minister William King authorized this cooperation. To maintain operational secrecy, the Canadian element was designated as the 2nd Canadian Parachute Battalion. A broader unit name was also required to preserve this cover and avoid confusion with other specialized units. As a result, the title 1st Special Service Force was selected. Though the name did not have the bells and whistles of other Special Force units, the 1st Special Service Force garnered their respect solely through their combat operational successes. With the project underway, a more clearly defined organizational structure became necessary. It was determined that the unit had to be fully self-sufficient, while remaining light and adaptable enough to operate effectively in any environment. Consequently, the force was organized into 2 echelons, a combat element and a support element. Although American and Canadian personnel served together within the unit, the support echelon was composed exclusively of American troops. Selection emphasized exceptional physical fitness and a willingness to undergo parachute training. Following the withdrawal of the Norwegian contingent, the overall manpower requirement for the North American component increased. To meet this need, an additional 197 Canadian soldiers were requested, raising the projected strength to 697. This request specified a colonel to serve as second-in-command, 4 lieutenant colonels or majors, 6 majors or captains, 36 lieutenants, and 650 enlisted men. The minimum acceptable enlisted rank was sergeant, a standard later extended to all personnel deemed to possess strong non-commissioned officer potential. The specific numbers of soldiers presenting in the force fluctuated throughout the war, with numbers increasing as the buildup continued. The combat echelon integrated soldiers from both countries, 567 Canadians and 600 Americans, for a total strength of 1,167 men. The echelon was organized into 3 regiments, each consisting of approximately 600 personnel and commanded by a colonel. Each regiment contained 2 battalions led by a lieutenant colonel and comprising roughly 300 men. Each battalion was divided into 3 companies, with each company of about 100 men commanded by a captain. Every company contained 3 combat platoons, each of which was divided into 2 sections along with an attached headquarters platoon. The section served as the smallest organizational element within the force and consisted of 12 to 16 men. Sections were led by staff sergeants and were structured to include 3 demolition specialists, 1 medic, 2 mechanics, a navigator, a radioman, 2 grenadiers, and a light machine gunner. Although 4 weasels were originally assigned to each section, they were never employed operationally. The table of organization prescribed a strength of 30 officers and 600 enlisted personnel for the support echelon as a battalion-sized unit, all of whom were American. This organization was responsible for managing the force's entire logistical operations, thereby relieving the combat troops of routine garrison duties that were common in other Army units. The service battalion was composed of a maintenance company, a service company, a headquarters company, and an Ordnance and Communications Detachment. In addition, a separate aviation detachment provided parachute transport support. Within these companies, soldiers carried out essential support functions, including cooking, carpentry, and parachute rigging. A military police platoon and medical section were also part of this organization, along with a photographic detachment responsible for documenting the unit's training. This structure deviated from standard norms of the period, as most U.S. Army units integrated support personnel directly within combat units. The rationale for establishing a fully separate service battalion was to allow the combat echelon to concentrate exclusively on training and operational tasks without the distraction of routine support functions. As the 1st Special Service Force was organized as a light infantry unit, additional heavier units were occasionally attached to augment its capabilities. These attachments included the 456th Parachute Artillery Battalion, the Ranger Gun Company, and the 81st Reconnaissance Battalion. Standardized detachments within the force included an aviation detachment and a cannon company. Throughout the war, the total number of personnel fluctuated due to casualties and reinforcements. However, the 3-regiment structure, along with the support echelon, remained unchanged until the force was ultimately disbanded. Their heritage lives on through the 7 Special Forces groups that currently exist in the regular Army and Army National Guard, all of which trace their lineage back to the 1st Special Service Force of World War II.